Today we are going to review the unauthorized story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion by Jeff Baham. And I did get a free review copy, but I'm not being paid for the review other than the free review copy. And I'd like to say that I actually really enjoyed the book, just right off the bat. I want to just say that. It was one of the best Disney books I've read in a long time. I did get a few other review books at the same time, and this is definitely the best one, the one I definitely like the most. So let's talk a little bit about the book. Now, for me, a lot of Disney books, I know a lot about Disney, I have a ton of Disney books, but it's very rare for me to actually learn a lot from a Disney book. I typically will learn maybe one or two things, if that, from any Disney book. And this book was definitely not at all like that. And that is what I really appreciated about this book, is that there was a ton of information that I didn't know. I mean, compared to normal, was not a lot of information in terms of big, huge things I never knew, but every, maybe 4 or 5 pages, there'd be at least a little tidbit I'd never heard of. And it ended up maybe being 10, 20 different things that I'd never heard of, with maybe 4 or 5 of those being kind of bigger, more interesting stories. So that is something that I really loved about this book, is that I have not had a book like that was, and since I was younger and didn't know as much about Disney, I have not really been able to find a book that gave me so much information. Something else that I liked is it had a lot of photos. They are not color, they're just black and white or grayscale. But there are a lot of good ones too. There's some you've probably seen. There are a lot of new ones and a few behind the scene photos. Each chapter has at least a few photos. Sometimes there's quite a few in a single chapter. So I really was happy with that as well. Typically it starts with the beginning of, the history of the Haunted Mansion, and then it kind of goes up chronologically as they work on it. The interesting thing is, I think at some point either in the book, I think it might have been the introduction by Rolly Crump, but somebody mentions, I believe, that like everyone was doing different things on this project. It was so many stop and go, the Haunted Mansion. So there's no one who really was there from beginning to end on the Haunted Mansion. So there are things people who worked on the Haunted Mansion don't know from this book. So that's how good the book is about new information. Even if you're a really diehard Disney fan, and the book was written by the DoomBuggies.com website guy, and even if you've been to the website and have seen everything, there's still going to be new stuff. So, even though, oh yeah, I've been to the website, there's going to be a lot you're going to learn. Then it goes into, after you kind of learn the history, it goes into individual, the ride. It talks about the ride, and it talks about, from the beginning of the ride, like you're going through, and it'll give you information. And it talks about both park. Well, it mostly talks about Disneyland and Disney World, but occasionally it mentions the other parks as well. And then it also goes on to talk about the collectibles for people who are big into the Haunted Mansion collectibles. And then it finally talks about, at the end, it discusses the Haunted Mansion holiday overlay and the history of that, which that was kind of interesting. Definitely an area I didn't know as much about. That I knew there had been, in one of my books about Disney Unbuilt, I knew there was talk of doing a Haunted Mansion or a Nightmare Before Christmas ride, but there's a lot of talk about the idea for an overlay had been around for a long time for Haunted Mansion. I didn't know as much about that, so that was really interesting for me. One of the bigger things kind of I learned. But then after that, that's kind of the end of the book, and then it does have some great further reading and index, has all kinds of information you might find. It's worth reading that to find places, websites, or podcasts, or books or movies or whatever you can watch or read or whatever to learn more if you're interested. If you're really big into Disney, it's a great resource. Just the few pages in the back telling where to look for stuff is amazing. And the grammar is great. A lot of the theme park press books have some problems, even my own. I have a couple that I wrote with them, and I'll admit I have some grammar problems in those books, and I've read some of theirs and had some grammar problems, and I've seen some reviews mention in mine and other books that they're not, there are a lot of little problems, nothing huge to annoy you. But in this book, yeah, I didn't notice anything at all, and I think the quality of the writing is really high and really good. So I assume they just turned it in, and there weren't really many problems or issues they needed to fix in the edit. And so it's probably just a lot like it was on the first draft that was sent to the publisher, I bet. Anyway, so yeah, this book was great. I think that's really about it. There's not much else that I need to really tell you guys. It was an amazing book. You learn a lot, even if you really know your stuff. Because it does, the general story of the Haunted Mansion, I knew the general story from beginning up to the final, end. And that wasn't anything new to me, but it was, like I said, the little individual stories. There was a story about how the effect of the heads following you came in to be. That was, they were in the prop department and they had a Mr. Lincoln, head thing was out, but, as you know, it's not the head, it's the inside of it. It's like, kind of backwards bust, if you will, and they walking by noticed that effect, and that's how that came to be. Things like that. Like, that was interesting. I assumed that effect had already been known, but no, Disney actually invented that. And it was just, random chance that happened. So that was interesting. Stories like that. Yeah, you get a lot of stories like that. So I would definitely recommend this book for Disney fans, Haunted Mansion fans for sure, and even Dark Ride fans. If you're not just Disney, but if you're a Dark Ride fan, definitely, I highly suggest this book. And I have a link. It's an affiliate link, so I do get a little bit of money if you purchase through that, but it doesn't cost you any more. That'll be below. And if you if you really want to get this book, make sure you can go there and get it. And finally, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. And I hope to see you again. Thanks. Bye.